Naval says that when a person is becoming wealthy, there are 5 clear signs. After observing countless people who rose from ordinary lives to exceptional ones, he noticed that they often go through the same quiet inner shifts. These changes do not always look dramatic from the outside, but once they begin, they start shaping the entire direction of a person's life. The first sign is that you become extremely protective of your time. At some point, you stop treating time like something endless. You realize that time is your only truly non-renewable asset. Money can be earned back, status can be rebuilt, opportunities can return, but time, once spent, is gone forever. And when this shift begins, it often starts with a deep, almost physical disgust for things that waste your life. You begin to feel tired of meaningless socializing. You lose interest in entertainment that exists only to kill time. You naturally start avoiding people, habits, and situations that drain your energy without giving anything valuable in return. You notice that arguing with certain people is simply too expensive. Not expensive in money, but in life itself. Some conversations are not worth having. Some opinions are not worth reacting to. Some rooms are not worth entering. Once you see that clearly, your behavior changes. You stop saying yes to everything. You stop confusing activity with progress. You stop giving hours of your life away just because other people expect access to you. Instead, you become selective. You guard your attention. You become more intentional with your calendar, your friendships, your habits, and even your downtime. People who stay poor often spend time casually. People who become wealthy learn to spend time like it is sacred. The second sign is that your attention shifts from social status to internal asset building. This is a major turning point. You slowly step out of the status game and turn toward the wealth game. These are not the same game. The status game is about looking important. It is about impressing other people. It is driven by comparison. Who has the better title, the better address, the better watch, the better image? The wealth game is different. It is about ownership, leverage, cash flow, judgment, and long-term financial strength. When this shift happens, you stop asking, "How do I look rich?" and start asking, "What do I actually own?" You stop focusing on symbols and start focusing on structure. You care more about whether your financial foundation is healthy than whether other people think you are doing well. You begin to understand a deeper truth. Real wealth is what continues to work for you even when you are not working. That is why Naval talks so much about ownership. Real wealth usually comes from owning a piece of a business, owning equity, owning intellectual property, owning code, owning media, or building something that can scale beyond your individual labor. If the moment you stop working your income also stops, then you may have a good job, but you have not yet built real wealth. This realization often arrives quietly. One day, you simply stop caring so much about proving that you are successful, and instead, you begin building a life that is financially real, not just visually impressive. Once that shift happens, it can change the next 10, 20, or even 30 years of your life. The third sign is that you enter a self-driven, almost hungry state of learning. But this kind of learning is different from the learning most people are used to. It is not just for passing exams, getting promoted, or pleasing authority figures. It comes from inside. It is driven by curiosity, ambition, and the desire to improve your judgment. When a person starts moving toward wealth, they often become deeply interested in subjects they once found boring. They begin studying how the world actually works. They may become curious about economics because they want to understand supply, demand, incentives, and market behavior. They may start reading psychology because they want to understand human nature, persuasion, fear, trust, and decision-making. They may even turn to philosophy because at some point they realize that money alone is not enough. They want clarity. They want meaning. They want to understand how to live well. This kind of learning is powerful because it builds something the market cannot easily take away from you. It builds your internal moat. It strengthens your thinking. It improves your ability to see patterns, make better decisions, and avoid costly mistakes. And perhaps most importantly, this learning no longer feels forced. Nobody has to push you. Nobody has to supervise you. You read because you want to know. You study because you feel the gap between where you are and where you could be. If this has been your recent state, that is a very good sign. It means you are no longer just trying to survive the system. You are beginning to understand it. And people who understand the deeper rules of life and business eventually start playing a different game from everyone else. The fourth sign is that you develop the ability to think across long-time horizons. You become more willing to endure short-term discomfort for long-term gain. This is one of the clearest differences between ordinary and exceptional people. Most people want immediate feedback. They want fast rewards. They want proof right now that their effort is working. They start a project and expect profit next month. They buy an investment and hope it jumps tomorrow. They want progress to be obvious, quick, and emotionally satisfying. But wealth rarely works that way. The people who build real wealth usually think on the scale of 10 years, 20 years, or even an entire lifetime. They understand that meaningful results often arrive slowly, then suddenly. They understand that the early stages of almost anything worthwhile can look boring, uncertain, and unrewarding. This is why patience is so valuable. In a world where almost everyone is addicted to instant gratification, patience becomes a rare competitive advantage. Naval's deeper point is that you must grow into the kind of person who can wait, not passively, but intelligently. You keep showing up, you keep building, you keep learning, you keep improving your craft, your reputation, your relationships, and your assets, even when the rewards are not immediately visible. And once you really understand compounding, your whole perspective changes. Compounding is not just a financial formula. It is one of the deepest laws of reality. Skills compound. Trust compounds. Reputation compounds. Good habits compound. Knowledge compounds. Money compounds. Small wise choices, repeated over many years, can eventually create explosive outcomes. At some point, you stop needing constant proof. You stop panicking over short-term noise. You begin to trust time, and that trust becomes one of the foundations of wealth. The fifth sign is that you deliberately keep your lifestyle growing more slowly than your income. This is strategic living, and it goes strongly against human nature. For most people, the moment income rises, spending rises with it. They upgrade the apartment, the car, the restaurants, and the lifestyle, often before their financial position is truly secure. From the outside, it looks like progress. But in many cases, they are simply increasing their pressure. They earn more, but they also owe more. Their flexibility shrinks. Their dependence grows. Their ability to take risks becomes weaker. Quietly wealthy people often do the opposite. When their income doubles, their lifestyle might increase only slightly or not at all. They use the gap between what they earn and what they spend to buy freedom, runway, optionality, time, and peace. Over time, this creates a huge psychological advantage. When your living costs are far below your earning power, you become harder to scare. You do not panic as easily. You do not stay trapped in bad situations just because you cannot afford to leave. You do not need to perform success for other people. Your relationship with material things begins to change. The question is no longer, what can I buy? The question becomes, what freedom does not buying this give me? That may be one of the most underrated signs of maturity. Real wealth is not just the power to buy. It is the power to choose not to buy. It is not proving that you can afford it. It is knowing that you can and still deciding that you do not need it. That is a higher form of confidence, a quieter kind of status, and in many ways the most powerful kind of flex. So, if you look at these 5 signs together, they reveal something important. Becoming wealthy is not just about making more money. It is about becoming a different person, a person who protects time, builds assets instead of chasing appearances, learns with hunger, thinks in decades instead of days, and keeps desire under control long enough for freedom to grow. Before wealth appears in your bank account, it usually appears in your behavior. Before it shows up on the outside, it starts forming on the inside, and once these shifts begin, even if the results are still invisible, your future is already changing.